You and your son are just freeloaders, my parents screamed at me. And they live in my house. Hello, my name is Cin Harper, I'm 36 years old, and I'm a product manager in Louisville, Kentucky. I've built a stable life for myself and my 12-year-old son. But last month, in the dining room of my own home, a family dinner that was supposed to be warm turned into something no one expected. Suddenly, my father screamed in my face, "You and your son are just freeloaders." My mother said nothing, just smiled and nodded. And the cruelest part is that they were still living in my house. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just looked them in the eyes and said one sentence that left everyone frozen. From that moment, everything began to fall apart. Why did I have to confront my parents like that? What led our relationship to break so badly that it might never be fixed? What would you do if you were in the same situation? To understand why I set that boundary, I need to take you back to the beginning of it all. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky, in a modest 2-story house with creaky floors and a yard that always smelled of freshly cut grass. I was 18 years old and full of dreams when my world completely changed. My grandfather had died a year earlier and left me $100,000 in his will, a cushion for my future, maybe for college or to start my life. I was excited, planning to study computer science and have a career of my own, but my parents had other plans. One summer afternoon, they called me into the living room. My father was sitting in his old armchair, arms crossed, face serious. My mother stood by the window, avoiding my gaze. They didn't waste time with small talk. "We need your inheritance," my father said in a cold voice, as if he were talking about the weather. "For what?" I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. "Your brother has a chance at success," my mother said. "He's going to start a construction business with your father and they need capital. It's a sure thing, Cin, we'll pay the money back." My older brother, Philip, wasn't even there. He was always the favorite son, charming, the one they always supported. I was the one who always had to comply. Holding my acceptance letter from the University of Louisville, I asked, "And my college?" My father shrugged. "You can take out loans, Cin. This is for the family." My mother nodded. "Philip's business will benefit all of us. You'll see." I felt the air leave the room. $100,000, my future, diverted to a dream I didn't even choose. They never asked for my permission, they just took it, promising to return it. Spoiler alert, they never did. That night, I decided to leave. I packed a suitcase with clothes, my computer, and the $500 I had saved from babysitting. I walked out of that house without saying goodbye. No one stopped me. No one called to see if I was okay. I was 18 years old and determined to prove I didn't need them. I moved into a small apartment near the university, sharing with 2 strangers to split the rent. I enrolled in college, but tuition was a monster. I worked 3 jobs, waitress, stocking shelves at a supermarket, and tutoring math. Some nights I would collapse onto a mattress on the floor, too tired to eat. I lived on instant noodles and coffee, stretching every penny, but I always looked at my acceptance letter on the wall and remembered why I kept fighting. My parents barely called, and when they did, they always mentioned Philip. "Your brother is working hard on his project." They never asked if I had enough to eat or to pay my rent. I learned not to expect anything from them. By my final year, I was exhausted, but not broken. I graduated with a degree in computer science, top of my class, and landed an entry-level job at a tech startup in Louisville. For the first time, I could breathe. I paid off my loans, moved into a small but decent apartment, and began to build my life. Then I met my ex-husband. He was a colleague, funny, and seemed reliable. We got married, had my son, and for a moment, I thought everything was okay. But after 3 years, I discovered he was cheating on me. I didn't beg him to stay. I made him leave and ensured his financial support for Dylan remained. That was enough for me. Those years taught me not to give in. I fought for every achievement while my parents and Philip lived on excuses. They never apologized for taking my inheritance, nor did they acknowledge the nights I went without food. That betrayal planted a resentment that grew in silence. At 36, I have a life I'm proud of. My job isn't just a salary, it's proof of all the nights I studied and all the jobs I worked. I manage a software team, and I'm good at it. I have my own 3-bedroom house, and my son Dylan, who is 12, is my world. He has a laugh that brightens the worst days, and every weekend we have our pizza and movie night. My parents, on the other hand, remain another story. After I left at 18, they barely communicated. Their messages have changed in recent years. "How's work going?" was always a pretext to ask for money. The first time, I helped with a few thousand, thinking it was an emergency, but the requests continued. $5,000 for the car, $10,000. I started to say no. My best friend and financial advisor, Denise Bailey, told me bluntly, "They're using you. You don't owe them anything." Her words helped me maintain my boundaries. I thought I had found my balance: work, Dylan, my own life. I wasn't looking for reconciliation, just to move on. But one afternoon, the phone showed my mother's number. Her voice trembled. That call pulled me back into the chaos I thought I had left behind. "Cin, it's your father. He's sick, he needs surgery, and we're in trouble with the bank. They're going to foreclose on the house. $300,000 in debt." I already knew what they wanted. I heard the word family and felt a lump in my throat. I couldn't stop thinking about Dylan as I tried to stay calm. "And what do you want me to do?" I asked. It wasn't just about the money, it was the weight of everything I had buried since I left. Part of me wanted to ignore them, to let them deal with their mess. They never cared about my problems. Why should I care about theirs? But another part, the one that remembered my father teaching me to ride a bike or my mother baking cookies when I was a child, hesitated. And if I didn't go back, I might regret it when it was too late. The next morning, I called Denise. She answered on the first ring with her direct voice. "Don't let them guilt-trip you," she said. "They've been bleeding you dry for years. You owe them nothing." She was right. She always saw clearly through the noise, but I still felt I had to face them, not for them, but for me. If my father was really sick, I didn't want to live with the what-ifs. I told Denise I was going back to Louisville, not to save them, but to close a chapter one had left open for too long. That night, I explained to Dylan that I would be away for a few days. "Is Grandpa okay?" he asked in a small voice. "I don't know yet," I said, stroking his hair. "But I'll be back soon, and we'll have our pizza night." Preparing for the trip felt surreal. I hadn't visited my parents in years, not since a tense Christmas when Dylan was 5. I booked a flight, arranged for Dylan to stay with a trusted neighbor, and requested a few days off work. The whole time, my stomach was in knots. I wasn't just going to a house, I was going to a battlefield. I knew they would ask for money, probably more than I could imagine. And Philip, my brother, would be lurking, ready to benefit from whatever I gave. When the plane landed in Louisville, I felt a mix of dread and determination. I rented a car and drove to the house where I grew up. It looked smaller than I remembered. The paint was peeling, and the yard was neglected. My mother met me at the door, pale but composed. "Thanks for coming," she said, her voice softer than on the phone. I nodded and walked in, bracing myself for what was to come. My father was in the living room, looking more fragile than ever, but with the same stubborn look in his eyes. Philip wasn't there, which was typical. They wasted no time. Over coffee, my mother laid it out clearly. The bank was moving fast, and they needed me to intervene. "You have the means," she said. "You could cover at least $200,000. It's the least you can do for your family." Her words hit me. $200,000. It wasn't a suggestion, It was a demand. I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. That's a lot of money, I said. I have responsibilities. My son, my house, my future. Why does this fall on me? My father's gaze hardened. You've always been selfish. We raised you, gave you everything, and now you're hoarding your money while we lose our home. I was paralyzed. Everything they had given me. They had taken my inheritance, left me on my own at 18, and now I was the selfish one. Philip chimed in with a condescending voice. Come on, Cin, don't play the victim. You're doing fine while we're drowning. I clenched my fists under the table. They didn't care about Dylan, they didn't care about my life, only what I could give them. Then my mother leaned in with a cold smile. You and your son are just freeloaders, she said. Living off our sacrifices, thinking you're better than us. That cut like a knife. But when she mentioned Dylan, something inside me broke. My son, who never asked for anything but love, was not their target. I stood up, firm. You will not involve my son, I said, looking her straight in the eye. You have no right to talk about him or me like that. My father snorted. Show some respect, Cin. We're your parents. I almost laughed. Respect. From the people who had taken everything from me. I turned to Philip. And you, I said in a sharp voice. You've lived off their excuses your entire life. Don't tell me how to live. My mother tried to speak. Cin, you owe us. We're family. I cut her off. Family doesn't demand what I've earned. Family doesn't insult my son. You want to call us freeloaders? Fine. I'm done. My heart was pounding, but my resolve was firm. I will handle this for me and for Dylan, not for you, I said, enunciating every word. My mother laughed with contempt. Always the dreamer, Cin. You'll never get the better of us. Keep talking, I said. You'll see. The room fell silent. My father slammed his hand on the table. You think you're better than us? Without this family, you're nothing. I didn't flinch. I had spent years building my own life. Their words couldn't touch me anymore. I walked out of the dining room with my head held high, my mind already forming a plan. That night, I called Denise. Are you really going to do this to them? She asked, a mix of concern and pride in her voice. I have to, I said. For Dylan, for me. 2 days later, my phone exploded with notifications. There were TikTok videos of my mother, crying and accusing me of being ungrateful, getting thousands of views and comments attacking me. I took a deep breath. I couldn't react in anger, that would only reinforce her narrative. I called Denise. I want to take control, I said. They're not going to intimidate me this time. Denise didn't hesitate. Then let's hit them where it hurts most. The house. You can buy it. The idea lit a fire in me. It wasn't just revenge, it was about reclaiming what they tried to take from me, power, my dignity. The next day, I met with Laura, the lawyer Denise recommended. The bank was ready to foreclose on my parents' house for the $300,000 debt. Laura confirmed I could buy it directly, eliminating any claim they might have. With Denise's help, we pulled together savings, investments, and a manageable loan. Within a week, I signed the papers. The house where I grew up was now mine. It felt surreal, like closing a wound that had been open for years. But I wasn't finished. Laura drafted a contract for my parents to stay as tenants, but only if they agreed to pay back the $300,000 within 5 years, with interest. If they missed a single payment, they were out. We also sent a cease and desist order for my mother to delete the TikTok video and stop spreading lies. When the notification arrived, my mother called, furious and screaming, but I was ready. No more games this time. You think you're going to control us, Cin? My mother spat. You're no better than us, throwing your money around as if you're someone important. I let her talk, my silence louder than her words. You received the notice, I said finally. Follow it, or face the consequences. I hung up, my heart racing, but my conscience was clear. Later, Philip sent me a message. You're ruthless. I didn't reply. He wasn't wrong, but I didn't regret it either. That weekend, I flew back to Louisville to pick up Dylan from the neighbor's house. He ran to me with a smile brighter than the sun. Did you fix everything? He asked, trusting me completely. I'm working on it, kiddo, I said, hugging him tight. I didn't tell him about the house or the video. He didn't need to carry that weight. I knew the fight was far from over. I sat with Denise that night, reviewing the papers. You're playing with fire, she said, half concerned, half admiring. They're not going to accept this without a fight. I nodded, looking at the contract. I had made my stand, but I was ready for whatever came next. A week later, Laura called. My parents were refusing to sign the contract. They said they didn't owe me anything and wanted to stay in the house. I wasn't surprised. Eleanor and Kenneth had always avoided responsibility, twisting the truth. But this time, I held all the cards. I owned the house. I told Laura to begin the eviction process. There would be no more chances. They chose their fate. The process wasn't quick, but it was effective. My parents fought, of course. Eleanor filled my phone with messages. You're destroying the family. How could you do this to your own blood? I didn't respond. Her words hurt, but they didn't move me. Kenneth was colder. You'll regret this, Cin. I saved every message and every voicemail as evidence. Philip, as always, remained silent, but I knew he was encouraging them behind the scenes. When Laura delivered the eviction notice in person, Philip was there, pale, not daring to speak to me. They had 30 days to leave, or the sheriff would get involved. At the end of the month, they were gone. Laura confirmed the house was empty, left in a mess, with furniture piled up in half-packed boxes everywhere. I flew to Louisville to inspect the property. Walking through the rooms was strange, like stepping into memories I didn't want to relive. The kitchen where my mother used to bake was now filled with dirty dishes. My old room, where I dreamed of my own future, had become a storage space for Philip's failures. I didn't dwell on it. I hired a cleaning crew and put the house up for rent. The income would cover the loan, and the rest would go into Dylan's college fund. I learned that my parents had rented a small apartment on the outskirts of town. Kenneth's health was weak, but manageable. Eleanor was working part-time at a supermarket. For the first time in years, they had to fend for themselves. Philip, predictably, moved in with them, chasing his next big idea. I didn't care. Their lives were no longer my burden. Cutting ties was harder than I expected. Not because I wanted their approval I had lost that years ago, but because letting go meant closing a door I had always hoped would open to something better. I blocked their numbers, deleted their emails, and stopped following Eleanor on TikTok. The video she had posted disappeared thanks to Laura's letter, but the comments lingered in my mind. Strangers called me cruel, a bad daughter, without knowing the years of betrayal behind it. I had to remind myself that their opinions didn't matter. I knew my truth, and that was enough. Dylan became my anchor. When I returned home, he was waiting for me with a drawing of a rocket flying past the moon. For you and me, Mom, he said, smiling. I hugged him, my heart full. Every decision I made, the house, the fight, the eviction, was for him, to show him what it means to stand up for yourself. That weekend, we planted flowers in the garden, something we had talked about for months. Dylan asked about his grandparents. Are they mad at us? His voice was small. They're mad at themselves, I said, choosing my words carefully. But we're okay. You and I have each other. He nodded and went back to planting. In that moment, his trust in me was worth more than any apology I could ever receive. Denise was there the whole time with her direct advice. "You're free now," she told me one afternoon over coffee. "They can't touch you anymore." She was right, but freedom had its own weight. I had spent years defining myself against my parents' failures, demands, and betrayals. Now, I had to discover who I was without that struggle. I threw myself into work, taking on new projects, mentoring young colleagues. I wanted Dylan to see a mother who not only survived but thrived. My team noticed the Chanhei a sharper focus, an unshakable confidence. I was no longer just a product manager, I was someone who had taken her life back. I thought about Travis, my ex-husband, a few times. He stayed out of it. When he called to ask about Dylan, I was cordial. "You're doing great, Cin," he said once. I didn't need his approval, but it was a small acknowledgement of how far I had come. Dylan deserved a father who was present, even if it was just through calls and birthday cards. Maintaining that connection was important for him. Looking back, I understood that the lesson wasn't about winning or losing. It wasn't about the house, the money, or the pain they caused. It was about respect, something my parents never understood. Family isn't just blood, it's the people who see you, who support you, who fight for you as much as you fight for them. My parents and Philip always chose themselves. I chose Dylan, Denise, and the life I built from nothing. That's what family means to me. Now, sometimes I drive by the old house. A young couple rents it, with kids' bikes in the yard. It's just a house, not a home. Not for me. Dylan fills our home with laughter and warmth, something I never had growing up.